The Washington Post, in an article dated December 8th, had an article titled, "Why Are There No Black Players in Argentina?" referring to the Argentinian national soccer team that is about to play for the World Cup title tomorrow, December 18th, versus France. No black players. And or they say, the reference in many articles I've seen in the past, or the talk, and I've been interested, being Argentinian on my mother's side, I've been interested on this subject. And it has been pointed out in many articles or discussions in the past that I've noticed. The reference or the question as to why there are no blacks supposedly in Argentina, as almost as if saying, well, Argentina is implied. The implication has been many times, well, Argentina is even a racist nation, an all-white nation, or wants to present itself as an all-white nation. Like a couple points I want to make about that. When it comes to national soccer teams, let me talk about Argentina's immediate neighbors. Uruguay in recent years has had one black player on its team. Its other immediate neighbors, not counting Brazil, which has a sizable black population and has famously so many blacks on its soccer teams, Chile, Paraguay, and Bolivia have had a combined total of 0 black players on their teams through the years. They have had no blacks. In Chile, there are no blacks. In Bolivia is very indigenous, and Paraguay, as far as I know, I've never known or heard of any blacks at all there. Argentina has a history of blacks. Very small number of blacks today. From last count, an article that I read, it would maybe something like 2,000 blacks in the entire nation, in a country whose population today stands at about 45 million people. The Post article said there is 1% black, that the population of Argentina is 1% black. They later, a few days later, offered a retraction, and as they discovered, there's even less than 1% of a black population in Argentina. It was sizable until I heard, in my research I've done, until about the 1890s or so, that Argentina had a population in Buenos Aires then of about 30% black. In Argentina, just for the record, there was a slave trade in Argentina as well, a short one. It didn't last very long. We tend to think the slave trade of blacks is an American thing, it's a United States thing. There was slavery throughout the Caribbean islands and parts of South America as well. There are many nations in South America and the Caribbean parts of Latin America with blacks. Most of them are of slave descent. So slavery ended in Argentina in 1813. That was before Argentina even officially became a nation. They won their independence from Spain in 1816. So the reasons for what happened to the black Argentine? Well, for one thing, there was much intermarriage. During the 1800s, as we know, 1870s, 1880s, 90s, there was a sizable immigration into the Americas from Europe. We tend to think all Europeans ended on Ellis Island. No, they didn't. Many of them went to South America. When we speak about the Atlantic side, of course, coming from Europe to somewhere on the Atlantic coasts of the Americas, they also landed in Brazil. The Atlantic side, of South America includes Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. Many Europeans. After that, there was much intermarriage between Europeans and what blacks there were in Argentina. So then, therefore, as time goes on, the black people of black race became more white, and as I read in an article once, it's as if the black Argentine became a drop of ink in a glass of water. Another thing that hit the black population was the yellow fever epidemics in Argentina. It wiped away many black people, many other people too, but it hit blacks especially hard in Argentina. Wars was a major issue. The wars for independence in Argentina against the Spanish, as well as wars later on against neighboring nations. Black soldiers tended to make up a good size of those armies, and they ended up in the front lines many times. So they were considered pretty much cannon fodder, and many of them unfortunately died off there. They were killed off there. Many of them went into exile. They were exiled. They were even taken to the borders of Brazil and Uruguay and sent off there. There was a move by the governments, Argentine government at the time, to dispossess Argentina of blacks. And so between yellow fever, intermarriage, wars, and exile, blacks began, the black population in Argentina began to diminish more and more. As of, where today it stands as less than 1% of the population of Argentina. Today, if you have, in censuses that are taken, there are people of black descent who will disavow any connection to any black ancestor. In most countries, if you have a drop of black blood, if you're 1% black, you're considered black. In Argentina, if you tend to look black, but if 1%, one ancestor who is white, you're considered white. You call yourself white. The people will just disavow, as I said, disavow any association to blacks, to a black ancestry. There are some influences from black Argentines in Argentina. I'll refer to one now. In the barbecue, which Argentines are famous for, in what is known as the parrillada, that's the barbecue where the whole damn cow is cooked. The Argentines will cook every part of it, including the heart and intestines. And there's something called morcilla. In English, we call it blood sausage, which I don't like. I love Argentine barbecue, but two things I don't like. I don't like the morcilla, the blood sausage, and I don't like what's called chinchulines, or known as we call in English sweetbreads. Those are the glands, the pancreas, and parts of the intestines, which I won't eat. I won't have that. Well, it turns out the story is that when they did have black slaves, many of them were, or a number of them were used as black as gauchos, or the gaucho is the Argentinian cowboy, the South American cowboy. And they were rather segregated from the non-white gauchos. So the gauchos would have what, in those days, they would not eat the entire cow and all those parts. They would strip the fat, cut the intestines, cut the guts out, and chuck them, right? Well, the black gauchos would take the leftovers, take what they were given, and cook them up themselves. So I imagine then, how did it become a normal part to eat the whole part of everything of the cow? They probably got a sniff, right? The non-black gauchos probably got a good sniff of those, of what was cooking, were interested, got interested, asked the black gauchos what they were eating, what they were cooking, tried it themselves, decided, hey, those things aren't bad. They're not bad. And so it became the Argentinian barbecue today is like what we call the parrillada, is you will eat. They will tend to eat just about everything from the cow. Then there is, as I said, slavery ended in 1813. Blacks today, where you can see them in Argentina, I've seen, when I was there, I saw in Buenos Aires blacks, but they're more like African blacks. You can tell they come today more so, the ones who are obviously black are African blacks, fresh from Africa. You'll see them working as vendors in the streets of Buenos Aires, selling jewelry and trinkets out of briefcases. And there's been disputes, fights with white or non-black Argentines for vending space. There's been problems there. But they are there. They are in certain neighborhoods of Argentina. They're hard to find one whom is obviously black. There are descendants of blacks today you see in Argentina. They may have a little bit of kinky hair or a certain feature or a little darker. People tend to think of Argentinians as very European look, but they're not all so. They can be indigenous or mulatto looking or mestizo looking. That Spaniard with an Indian or Native American. So there's a mix of Argentines that I've known through the years too. We're not all white, okay? For the record, my father was Peruvian, and Peru has a sizable black population. So that's for Peru. Other countries you may be interested there, Colombia has a black population, Venezuela has a black population. When you go to the Caribbean, they tend to be mostly black or a good sizable, maybe per capita, more blacks you'll find in the Caribbean countries, the Caribbean islands, than you find in South America. I mentioned, then there's the economic thing. Why there aren't more blacks? There are many times the Africans who come, for example, they may not stay around. The economy is extremely bad in Argentina. I heard a story recently of a man from Senegal who went to Argentina to work to find a better life for himself. He ended up going back to Senegal because he said, I had a better life in Senegal than I do in Argentina. What am I doing here? I can't make it. So today, the immigration of blacks from Africa, other parts of the world, they may not tend to be going to Argentina as much. So they are there, but as I said, the black in Argentina today is more like a drop of ink in a glass of water. They are hard to find, but they do exist. And as for why there aren't blacks on the soccer team, every team chooses the best football players, the best soccer players it can find. None of them have been black so far, or they've had maybe some lightly black soccer players in the past. There was one called Fernando Tissoni. There was a black boxer named Lovell. There was a black musician named Gabino Seiza. They have a history there. But today, it's pretty much diminished. It's hard to find. If you find a black Argentine, a black Argentinian, you've really found something. It's okay. It's interesting. It's a subject that fascinates me, that interests me. Some jokes come out of it too. Some Argentines will say, we're not racist against blacks in this country. How can we be racist against blacks when there are no blacks in Argentina? Which is not true. Another person sickeningly told me once in a joke, there are no blacks in Argentina. We killed them all. Not funny. But anyways, the attitude there is the Argentines will tell you, there's some will tell you we have no blacks there, which is not completely true. You can find, actually, if you're more interested in the subject, on YouTube, if you check and look for Afro-Argentines or Afro-Argentinos in Spanish, you'll find some interesting videos on that topic. Okay, this is Edgar Montoya for the Language Cafe. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you subscribe. I hope you would leave comments and give me some likes. And I hope to hear from you in the future. Maybe give me ideas for other posts on my channel, Language Cafe. Thank you, and